Face front, true believers. You're now listening to Stan Lee's Mustache. I'm your host, John, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Stan Lee's Mustache. If you've just signed up, you're probably asking yourself, what is Stan Lee's Mustache and why am I watching it? Stan Lee's Mustache is my video series dedicated to the classic superhero stories. We hear a lot today about how superheroes are a genre among themselves. In movies, they've taken over movies, they've taken over television. And so I am going to go back and examine the roots of the superhero genre by examining and talking about classic creators, classic stories. In my mind, a classic is anything that's a classic. I have no timeline. I have no format, no restriction. It's just typical American superhero comic books. I'm going to talk about them every episode. I'm going to pick something I like, and I'm going to talk about why I like it. Today is a video that I'm excited to do. I'm kicking off what I consider one of the seminal series by one of the pillars, one of the holy trinity, if you will, of the superhero genre, Jack Kirby. I have in this box before me Jack Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus. I thought I'd do an unboxing video for my audience to kind of kick the episode off or kick the series off. If you're unfamiliar with Jack Kirby, I will review the book once I get it unboxed and get everything going. But Jack Kirby is one of what I consider the pillars of the superhero genre. Jack Kirby, along with Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, make up what I consider the classic superhero genre. They didn't invent it. Well, they did kind of invent it, but they certainly defined it. And in my mind, and certainly in my experience, they refined it and made it what it is today. In fact, I would argue that those three gentlemen created a foundation that Marvel Comics has built upon, and some would say is even coasting on nowadays. But they built a foundation that will last possibly, probably, at least in movies forever, and probably in comic books forever. But anyway, okay, so let's get started. I'm going to unbox this. One of my goals with this show is to keep my videos fairly short. This is not a podcast. I do a podcast under my real name, and they're long. So this is going to be a video cast. It's going to be fairly short. But I'm excited to get this in. For those of you who don't know about the Fourth World, Jack Kirby, along with Stan Lee, was one of the co-creators of most of what we know of as the Marvel Universe, specifically the Fantastic Four, but he played a part in a lot of other characters. When Jack Kirby got tired of working for the Fantastic Four, he got tired of working at Marvel and what he felt was a subservient role. At one point, Jack Kirby would send in pages and he would write notes in the margins, and he was mad because Stan Lee would not follow his notes, or so the story goes. And so you had two gentlemen, Stan Lee, the writer, and Jack Kirby, the artist, who had worked together for years and created a lot of very important stuff. Jack Kirby was unhappy. DC found out about that and came to him and made him an offer that he could basically create his own characters, his own series. Jack Kirby started off, he did Jimmy Olsen. He took over Jimmy Olsen. He started on Jimmy Olsen with a bang. Then he went and created what we know as the Fourth World, which was Mr. Miracle, the Forever People, and the New Gods. And it was basically, he created his own mythology. And I had the original comics, have had the original comics for years, but DC has recently released this, and this sucker is thick. I don't know how heavy this is, but it's pretty heavy. And this is a phenomenal package, and I was hoping that it would arrive to me in good shape, and I think it did, despite the fact that it's in a box with just a little bit of bubble wrap. Let me get my, hang on just a second, I don't want to damage it. It's shrink wrap, thankfully. I don't know if we got here safely. It wasn't shrink wrap. Let me unbox this sucker. So it does have a dust jacket. I did not believe it had a dust jacket on it. It's got a dust jacket. Ooh. It's a little dinged up in the corner, but not too bad. Not worth sending back, I don't think. Man, it's got a nice looking cover. I like it better than the dust jacket. The dust jacket will probably get taken off. Hang on just a second. Let me get positioned around. I'll flip through some pages. Okay. Wow, this sucker's cool. Wow. Be careful opening this. Wow, this is nice looking. Oh, and it smells like a comic book. This is phenomenal. Like I said, I had the original comics, and they don't look this good, obviously, but they look pretty good, but the blacks are not near this black. And on mine, the paper's pretty yellowed. And a lot of the colors here, as you can see, the colors are solid on the old printing. And I don't know if this was recolored. It does not look like it. If it was recolored, they did a pretty subtle job of it. But on the old one, because of the way it was printed, there'd be like a dot pattern in some of this, what they call Ben-Day dots. This looks perfect. This is phenomenal. It's a little heavy. I'm here in the library in my home. I'll give you a little quick shot of the library, and it will sit in here. And my goal is to read it this summer. Oh, here's some of Jack Kirby did collages. He started doing them in the Fantastic Four, and he started doing them. He did some in this. This is phenomenal. The paper's nice and slick. I said that I had the originals, which are pretty expensive now. I got them when they weren't really expensive back in the 90s. There was a shop going out of business locally, and at one point, like the last minute, he was like, anything you want $1, and I grabbed every single one of the Fourth World he had. I think I've got all of them. I may be missing, and there's quite as you can see, the run is pretty, because it's the 4 books. But I think I've got all of them. It's phenomenal. But then they reprinted, DC reprinted it in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they were not in color. They were, if you're familiar with, DC does I think it's called a showcase. Marvel does the essentials, and it's on rough paper, and it's a cheaper printing, but you get a lot of book, but it's black and white. Well, this, I don't believe they had the black and white art, or they didn't want to use it or something. And so what they did is they took, I don't know if it's this art, but it was in gray. So they printed it in kind of a grayscale. And the problem with that was it just didn't look really good. And so I have those, and I forget how many. I think Mr. Miracle ran a little bit longer, so it's on 2 volumes, and I don't know if they did a Jimmy Olsen volume. They may have not done one, but this is phenomenal. I can't wait to read this. I've kind of told myself this is the summer of Jack Kirby, so I'm going to talk about this more on the show, on future episodes. I know for sure there's some of these that I want to talk about because they're considered like classics of the superhero genre. And that's what I'm going to talk about on Stan Lee's Mustache, is that classic superhero, which we now see has seeped out of comics and is permeating all of entertainment. So there you go, man. Anyway, that's the Fourth World Omnibus, Jack Kirby, classic superhero. If there was ever a classic superhero. You saw it here on Stan Lee's Mustache. If you enjoy the show, comment below. Please subscribe and sign up for notifications. You can email me at stanleysmustache@gmail.com. Have a good day. Face front, true believers, and Excelsior!